All right, JD Meaney. Thanks for coming down to the Focus podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show. I guess first and foremost, how did you become inspired to actually become part of like a political party first?
So, believe it or not, this actually started when I was 18. I saw Bill Clinton speak at the CNE. I heard him live.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how when he was about 18 or 20, I think it was, that he was trying to become a journalist. And he thought, well, instead of reporting on the news, why don't I make the news? Why don't I try and have an impact? And I went, hey, that's really interesting because I was trying to become a journalist at the time too.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe that I should look at getting involved with the community and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. I actually wanted to become a journalist too. It was like I applied to go to Carleton to become a journalist, but then I was just like, maybe not. Like it was a big step for me, and it was I didn't want to be in debt after Carleton for 4 years. But yeah. So then how did you meet up with Maxime Bernier of the People's Party of Canada, and then tell us a little bit about that developing story because it's very interesting, of course.
So my background actually, when I first started getting involved, was in 2010 for the municipal campaigns. I had a mentor who was a part of the Conservative Party, and he actually encouraged me to join up. Now, I was living in Australia in 2015, so I only joined afterwards when I came back home. And at that time, municipal elections were starting to happen again every, so many years there. And then he said, maybe you should run for council. Thought about it. And then I was drawn more to the federal issues. So then I kind of put the hold on any municipal activity and then went directly into the federal. So I was a part of the Conservative Party, and I don't know if you know the background about Scheer and Bernier and the voting in there.
But you tell us a little bit about that. Yeah.
So Scheer was my 11th pick out of 10 on the ballot.
Okay.
So I never really heard about the guy before. It didn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
Bernier was always my first choice. So he lost.
Right.
And eventually I met him at the Albany Club.
Yeah.
And then when I met him, very charismatic guy. And I said, hey, I voted for you. And right away, he had a magnetic personality, and I thought, this is why I like this guy. I like what he stands for. And shortly after that, he had split off and made his own movement there with PPC.
Right.
So I thought that was more in line with my values.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So why did he do that? Or if you can discuss why he, instead of sticking around with the Conservative Party?
I think because there are people that were not being represented in the country, and a lot of the issues that he felt very passionate about were not being spoken about in the Conservative Party. For example, he's very strong on the supply management issue, which is something that for the new NAFTA deal that was wanting to be put on the table by the President Trump, and no leader wanted to table this. So Bernier was the only one that spoke about it. So instead of working against them, he wanted to work with him about how we could accomplish something with our two countries.
Right.
Yeah. So then he talked about immigration, talked about environmental policies that make sense, equalization payments, just to name a few. But yeah.
So in terms of immigration, can you comment a little bit more on that or discuss a little bit more about the immigration?
So we had a big rally actually just on Wednesday. So we had about 1,200 people that showed up. It was great. Lots of mainstream media showed up too.
Right.
YouTubers. I think it was pretty good success there. So we spoke about multiculturalism, immigration, and Canadian identity.
Right.
What that should look like. So right now the Liberals have an objective. They want 450,000 immigrants per year. We want to bring it down to 150,000. So right now our immigration with the numbers of the Liberals, about 25% actually suit skilled-based immigration.
Okay.
Where the other ones are more economic immigrants.
Right.
So immigration is an important tool for a country. So we're not an anti-immigrant party. We just want the numbers to be lowered. So we want to give opportunities to Canadians that are here first.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. what about the environmental policies? Obviously, that's a big issue. Not a big issue, but it's a big topic, of course.
It's a big topic. I think a lot of people today are very concerned about climate change. I'm not a climate change denier. Depending on who you talk to, some people are for it or against it. I think that withdrawing from the Paris Accord does make sense, though. We should focus on environmental policies that are close to home. So, for example, part of our environmental strategy is to make sure that First Nation communities have clean drinking water.
Yes.
It's something that the Liberals fail to do. So we want to make sure that they have that. They shouldn't be without that. So it's crazy in a first world country that that's still going on.
So talk about your first encounter with Maxime Bernier and what happened actually there. That's very interesting.
So at the time, I was still trying to become a candidate for the Conservatives in Oakville.
Right.
And he had lost the leadership race.
Right.
And he was very supportive and said, "Oh my God, I love the community of Oakville, and I'd be really happy to come out and endorse you," which I thought was really cool.
Right.
Because I wasn't even a candidate at the time, and he was going to come, put his support behind me, and I thought, this guy is great.
Yeah.
So
That's a good guy.
yeah, exactly.
And then what happened after that? Like.
So then I was still in the Conservative Party at the time, and I ended up going to the PC convention, where I was a youth delegate, and I was representing Oakville, and I voted on various party issues on a provincial level. And then kind of the elephant in the room at the time, talking to other people there, was, "Oh, did you hear about the PCs, or PPCs?"
Yeah.
Maxime Bernier was kind of a taboo thing, and maybe at this point I'll call it political correctness. So they're trying not to shed too much light on that whole situation. I heard Scheer speak, and then there were some people that were heckling him at the convention.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So depending on who you talk to, you can kind of feel some conservatives were ready to support Bernier on a federal level, and they were not really ready to get behind Scheer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so, and then when the actual party actually formed, what happened with you, and then how did that allegiance or sort of develop?
So basically, there was someone actually in Oakville who was important in the riding, and they had told me that I would never make it as a conservative. They said, "But it'll be good experience for you." And I thought, well, that's kind of, discouraging. So I was like, I'm trying to be authentic about this, and, I believe in change for the country. So why are you telling me this kind of thing? It's very weird. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. For example, in the London, the riding of London with Salim Mansour.
Yeah.
They didn't want him to run either.
Right.
So...
And now he's running with you guys.
And now he's running with us.
Yes,
We picked him up. And it was just a really good fit for us. So I think at that time, it was, after November, it was right around January, I withdrew from my the nomination race for the Conservatives in Oakville, and I joined the PPCs.
Right.
And I said, I'm interested in becoming a candidate for the PPCs in Oakville. So that's kind of how that happened.
So what's the actual process of how to become a candidate? Do you have to get a bunch of signatures or something like that? Sort of like
you do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So because I remember watching this documentary called Mr. Jane and Finch, and they had this 80-year-old gentleman from North York or Jane and Finch area. He wanted to become a part of the a political riding or something like that. And then he had to get a bunch of signatures. So what do you have to do?
So it's a bit of a grind. You got to do lots of door knocking, lots of talking to people, tons of networking. You got to be personable. People got to believe in you. You need to make sure that you're getting signatures for Elections Canada. I believe the requirement is 100, but they always recommend getting more than that. Yeah. Just because sometimes signatures don't always work out. Sometimes people don't, they're not very legible when they write them. Yeah. They might not live in the boundary, but they think they do. Yeah. So, for example, Oakville's divided in 2 different boundaries. So I would be looking at, Oakville Central. Okay. Which is? It'd be upper middle to Lakeshore. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That kind of area. And then, so you want to get enough signatures then. Also, if you have to go through a nomination process where you're up against other opponents, they want you to get signatures within the party too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then when you got that sort of like put together, then what happens next? I guess. Not much. Like not much.
You battle it out.
You battle. Nice.
Yeah.
So, what have you learned about being part of this party so far? And what I've talk about a little bit about the experience, or what? I guess what are the primary things that you actually learned so far through this journey?
I've definitely learned a lot about leadership. It's one thing to read about it, and then it's one thing to put yourself in the shoes of one and trying to lead a team, build a team, talking to people that are not necessarily a part of your team, but they have issues they want to raise,
right?
And you want to listen to them and talk to them,
right?
Trying to fulfill their needs. So it's very hard to please every single person on everything. So I don't believe in vote pandering. I believe in trying to take a firm stance about, this is our policy, this is what we believe, and we want you guys to believe in us. If you don't believe in us, there are other parties that might suit your interest.
Right.
And I think that's what's beautiful about democracy.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So actually a friend of mine said, actually told him like you were coming on to the podcast, and I told him about PPC, and he actually said, yeah, I like their platform because they're just going back to the basics. So can you comment a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So from my definition, I view us as a conservative, libertarian, classical liberal kind of party. Not far left liberalism, which is kind of taken over that definition today.
Yeah.
But also not far right. But I would say we are right of center on most policy issues. I think that's the best way I could explain that.
Nice. So how do you feel about this party being like growing so fast? Like I've heard that through the many YouTube videos that I've seen about the PPC, and tell us how that's a good thing, of course.
It's actually really exciting. So I think our biggest advantage we have right now is social media. I don't think the other parties have that same advantage like we do. I guess the way you could word this is we're kind of a guerrilla party in that sense. So
which is not a bad thing.
No, definitely not. So
there was somebody on, I think, Rebel Media talking about like independent media like covering the PPC. So talk about that, and like
so
how that's advantageous, of course, for you guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Having an online presence is really fantastic, especially for millennials. That generation. I myself am one. We're plugged in more than than older generations, I guess.
Right.
So I think we have that advantage to have people go a little bit further and kind of learn about us. Where some people who might be subjugated to the narrative of the media, and it might not necessarily always be true, depending on who's writing it.
Right.
So if it's totally unbiased, I'd love to see that. But
So tell us about Antifa, and what is Antifa, and because I've seen you mention Antifa's name in a couple of your posts on Facebook, of course, and we've been going live. So
So Antifa, I think for people to remember them, if they haven't heard of them, if they remember the G20 in 2010, there was a group called the Black Bloc, which basically trashed downtown Toronto, and they were anti-establishment. Antifa stands for anti-fascist, and I believe they started around the 1920s.
Oh wow! Okay.
And the rise of fascism and Nazism, and they were opposed to that, so they're standing in the face of it. And I think that was probably a good thing at the time.
Okay.
But I think they've lost their way. They sort of resurfaced again.
Okay.
So the Black Bloc kind of took over what Antifa would be, and then they've kind of now carried that banner. So they're far left and anti-establishment, sort of anarchist and kind of Marxist ideology.
And what are some of the things that they oppose in regards to the PPC, and why would they want to, counteract what you guys were trying to do?
I think a big part of it is that we are a populist party.
Okay.
In a very, strong sense that way, where we believe in putting Canada first. We champion Western civilization, where I think they believe that it's inherently racist or wrong. They're anti-colonial.
Okay, yeah.
So I think that they think the foundation and the fabric of what Canada is, or the West in general, they want to tear that apart.
Right.
And I think there are people that are in positions of power right now that are not standing up to them. I think that they're allowing them to kind of do their dirty work, so to speak.
Right.
So, yeah.
Are these the people that wanted to call the police on you at Bronte Park? And tell us a little bit about that story. Yeah.
Let me just say, so Antifa did put out some threats against us in Guelph.
Okay.
The PPC association that was there.
Okay.
So they were not the ones that were trying to come after me in Bronte. That was actually the town.
Okay.
But Antifa has used violence in the past to try and get their message across. They believe in, using their hands and fists and, objects instead of words, which, diplomacy is, free speech is the root of diplomacy. Which does bring me to what happened in Bronte Park. So we had permission from the town of Oakville to be canvassing that day. Canada Day, there were to be no tents for any candidates, myself being one. It was only reserved for sitting MPPs and the MP.
Right.
The town had a no waste policy, so we abide by that. We didn't bring any flyers or anything like that.
Yeah.
We said, can we bring balloons to give to kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. Okay,
Okay.
great. Can we bring business cards? Yes, you can bring business cards. Okay, wonderful. So we're going to show up in our t-shirts. There was about 14 of us. And when we got there, the Liberals had a tent. There was a sitting MP at the tent, but then there was also the candidate who was there.
Yeah.
What we caught her doing was she was handing out flyers.
Okay.
So we thought, well, that's a no-no. Why is that going on? Then we saw the Conservative candidate who had his own booth, but he was giving away popcorn. We asked about this, and they said, well, he's got a business. And I thought, well, why isn't he with all the other food vendors?
Right.
That's not a business. He's giving away free popcorn. That's promotional.
Right.
So you're doing waste because you're giving out bags.
Right.
And then you have your location away from where all the food vendors are. So, it seemed like a little bit of a sketchy kind of definition of what they're doing, trying to get around that. We thought, okay, so we're going to continue anyway. We went to the front of Bronte Park, and we were talking to lots of people, and I brought a clipboard with me, and we were getting lots of those signatures that we need for the nomination papers.
Yeah.
Eventually, there was a town official who showed up, and ironically, he was wearing...
Town official.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He was wearing a yellow vest.
Yellow vest.
Yellow vest, but the thing is, a lot of the yellow vests are actually PPC supporters.
Yeah.
So, shout out to them.
Yeah.
But this guy was not, one of our kind of yellow vests being a town official. Had his walkie-talkie, and he told us, he said, "You're the candidate." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "Well, the event organizer wants you guys out of here."
Whoa.
Yeah. And if you don't cooperate, we'll have the Halton police escort you guys out of here.
Ooh.
And I thought, what did we do wrong? And I said, well, hold on a second. I said, we have permission from the event organizer that we're allowed to be here. And he says, nope, well, she wants you gone now. Yeah, so we, reluctantly cooperated with them out of fear of being arrested or, who knows what. So we packed up and left right away. The town of Oakville issued an apology through Twitter. Through Twitter. They said the town made a mistake. So it was an admission of guilt on their part. The vice president of my association wrote an open letter to Mayor Rob Burton, and he still has not responded to this.
Wow. Okay. So did they get rid of everybody else or just your party?
Just us.
Oh, okay.
And me.
And
yeah.
did they give you a reason as to why yet, as to why do they want to...
They gave us no reason. So I've kind of been saying, what was my crime there? Freedom of speech? Myself, my whole team.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything wrong.
No. Okay. And they still haven't given you any reason?
They haven't given a reason. No.
Okay. So what can you do now in terms of being a candidate? So
we believe they were in violation of the Canada Elections Act. So we're seeking legal counsel to look into this further, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Oh.
So
Okay. Again, tell us what went on. This week it's been a big week, and then they're mentioning your name, of course, in terms of the candidate being nominated. So yeah, so tell us how good this week has been for you.
It's been a lot of fun, actually. It's been really exciting. It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I think every just reward does come with a lot of work. I think that this is a rewarding potential career where you can give back and you can kind of look after, Canadians and, fight for their interests.
Right.
Yeah.
So you spoke at the beginning of this podcast, like the federal issues that you were concerned about. So you can shed light a little bit in regards to that, if you could, and then how we can tie that into what you're actually doing right now.
Sure. So I'm a very big believer that the cost of living should be affordable for everyone, especially especially for millennials. So
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hard for young people to get ahead today. Especially you want to get into the housing market or start a business, that kind of stuff. Follow your dream in any kind of way. So I think that a country with a fair market should reflect that.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that myself, being a part of this movement, will be able to have a voice in that and trying to fight for us.
Right.
Yeah.
How about actually Maxime's influence on you? So what kind of influence has he had on you so far?
I think when he speaks about crony capitalism, supply management, CBC getting $1.5 billion. Why is it that some companies can get these handouts from the government, but then other ones who have been around for so long never get a handout?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. That's not fair markets. So I think when he talks about that kind of stuff, that really, makes me think, because I come from a family of entrepreneurs and I've seen them work very hard. So that's a reality for me right there. I think when he talks about our soldiers, people that serve, our veterans, I have a soft spot for them.
Right.
I think they deserve a lot. And I think when Trudeau said they're asking more than we can give them right now,
right,
it was wrong.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So talk about the you want to represent the town of Oakville, of course. So how tell us about your views or what you want to achieve with the town of Oakville in the future.
I think that the town of Oakville has traditionally been a right of center riding. It flip-flops. It's pretty moderate, depending on who you talk to. I'm hoping that the PPC message will resonate with people and that, people will get behind it and really see the advantages that it'll provide for Oakville, that it is a well-to-do community, but there is an element of middle class that exists there too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Lots of professionals, lots of captains of industry. So I just think it's a good fit. Yeah.
What's coming up with the PPC and because in the upcoming election here at 2019, October 2019?
Yeah, October. Yeah, October 21st, maybe.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. So what is your what are you going to be doing actually? Yeah, you're
so I'll be getting into some of the debates there. We're going to try and get Bernier to come out to our riding. So I know he's doing mini tours across Canada, hopping around. So we hope that we'll be able to, convince them to come back and come talk to the town, maybe give a talk and everything.
Right.
So I'll be doing a talk with veterans most likely.
Right.
So I had my own kickoff not too long ago.
Right.
And we actually raised about 10 grand.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It was really fantastic. Lots of good donors. So, we're hoping we can keep that momentum going.
Nice. Nice. Is there somewhere where we can reach out to you online and tell our viewers and tell your viewers, of course, how we can actually reach you?
Sure. So Meaney for mpoakville.ca and for the number 4. That's the same for all my social media.
Well,
yeah.
JD, thanks for being here and good luck with everything in the future. And it's nice to see you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. Cheers.